And that's it. Ooh, tingles. The end of Shadowbringers. So I guess it's review time now. I mean, what is there to say? It's that hasn't already been said. Shadowbringers is just so good. And like I've said before, I think there's a bit of a cheat in it. And it's not that I rate Shadowbringers any differently now than I did before doing this New Game Plus, but I think I rate everything else before it higher. You know, bridging the gap a bit more. Just because I think when you look back on something, at least when I look back on something, I tend to, you know, focus on the good things, focus on the things I really liked about it. And so, when I look back on Shadowbringers, it was always flows with no ebbs. You know, so that just averages out like higher. When obviously, I mean, you need the ebbs and flows, you know, realistically. And so getting to see those ebbs now and, you know, the slower moments in the story and just all those parts I forgot about. Again, it didn't lower the score. It just helped me realize, oh, like Shadowbringers wasn't just one amazing, like, mind-blowing moment after another. It was a full story. You know, it wasn't just a highlight reel. And so, and again, it's just, I guess it's different having gone through the whole thing again and the older stuff more recently. But I was saying it was, Shadowbringers is a bit of a cheat because it starts to tie up loose ends or just start bringing threads that were kind of floating out, you know, in the ether. It started bringing them together. And so I think just anytime you have that, it's going to be good. You know, it's kind of, you know, the way like you think of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how like once you got to, I mean, because this is functionally what, Infinity War? So, you know, that's like all this stuff that had been set up in all the previous movies now is starting to come together. You know, and things are starting to make sense and, you know, you actually start to get a better understanding of the lore in the world you're in and everything like that. And then obviously Endwalker is going to be our end game. And hopefully, hopefully it hits as hard. But on top of that, not just our threads coming together and everything, but because it is that penultimate episode of this overarching story, it's ramping things up. And I think as you ramp things up, it's going to get more interesting. Because again, when I go back and think about the previous expansions and the character work in it and just, you know, the great story moments and everything, I don't think when you go like individual moment to moment, you know, like this moment in Heavensward, versus this moment in Shadowbringers, or this moment in Stormblood versus this moment in Shadowbringers. Like, does Shadowbringers just automatically win or anything like that? I think there are definitely just amazing moments in the previous expansions that are at least as good, if not better, than many of the moments in Shadowbringers. But when you put everything together, when you put all of Shadowbringers together versus all of... it's so funny. I just thought of that moment after the Amarat dungeon and right before you take on Hades, that cutscene. Just thinking about it was like a well of emotion, you know, starting up, because that's my favorite moment. That's just, nothing else beats that. But again, you know, well, so what I was saying was, you get Shadowbringers as a whole and compare it to the others, and to me it's better. And there was that wasn't going to change. So even how I felt before going into Shadowbringers this second time, you know, when I rated all of the expansions, I still feel it's the same, where it's just reverse release order. I still feel Stormblood is better than Heavensward. And again, this is all, you know, we're talking in, you know, fractions when it comes to a score. You know, it's not like I'm thinking, oh, Stormblood is an 8 and, you know, Heavensward is a 5. You know, it's nothing like that. You know, Stormblood is like, you know, 0.3 better than Heavensward or whatever to me. And they're all great. And I still love A Realm Reborn. I am still curious as to how much of the way I feel about A Realm Reborn is swayed by the fact that I know, you know, the later story. And just because I've been playing the game for so long, and it's been so long since I've done that content, to go back is kind of nostalgic in a way. So there's a bit of that like rose-tinted glasses or whatever to it. But I think between that and then just having context to things and seeing, oh my God, I can't believe they talked about this as early on as that. And, you know, oh my God, like I didn't realize this character, you know, first appeared this early in the story. That bolsters A Realm Reborn. But even then, when I still hear the individual criticisms of, or the criticisms of individual elements of A Realm Reborn, I still don't necessarily agree with it. Obviously, I still have my criticisms. Like, I think the character work is not, I think, anywhere near as solid as in the expansions. You know, the Scions, by and large, were just talking heads, you know, with not a whole hell of a lot of personality to them. And obviously that changed as it went along. I thought it would change right away in Heavensward, but seeing as most of the Scions were MIA and all of 3.0, I think most of the character work comes in Stormblood, and then certainly even more in Shadowbringers. Yeah, I need to look up to see if there's any like YouTube videos of lore concerning like Elidibus, because I still don't fully understand him. I think I get him on a very general sense, but you know, in the same way that like I get the Ascians in a general sense and what their history is and what they're about. But Elidibus, there's still a lot of the minutia that I'm not totally clear on. But I mean, if nothing else, Shadowbringers gets many points just for having Emmett Selk. He's my favorite character, I think. He's so great. I mean, he is a villain that I like. I like the villain. I like having him around. I wish he were still around. Maybe not necessarily trying to work toward the rejoining, but to still have him around, you know, popping in from time to time in cutscenes to throw out his sarcastic remarks and, you know, whatnot. Yeah, they, like, you know, the previous expansions, they introduced a lot of really great characters. I like Reen. I really like her story, and, you know, and how that ties in with Minfilia. And then I think, you know, it gets, you know, not even better per se, but there's more to it, you know, with the Eden raid story stuff. You know, that just kind of adds to her character more. I loved a lot of the side characters like Runar and like Lena, obviously. You know, some of the other ones were entertaining enough, like the, you know, the trolley guy and whatnot, but I will certainly say I don't think any expansion so far beats Stormblood for side characters, just purely by Azim Step. Like, it just there are so many great side characters and stories there. Yeah, it's interesting. I think when I look back between Stormblood and Shadowbringers, Stormblood, I think, had more... Like, I would finish up the stream for that day and go, damn, that was good. Like, that was just some really good story that day. Where Shadowbringers certainly had more story and more moments within the story that got to me emotionally. And yeah, I don't know, you know, if I can really put one above the other in that regard. I mean, I kind of don't even like necessarily like comparing all the expansions. Now, you know, to me, it's just, especially after doing it all in one go now, you know, all back to back. It's just, it's one story. I mean, especially how much Shadowbringers pulls from A Realm Reborn, you know. It's just, you know, things turning in on themselves and everything. It's hard to... I mean, because certainly Shadowbringers could not be as good as it is if it wasn't for what came before. And obviously, that's just an indication of great storytelling. And why, again, it's so important, and it bugs me the amount of people that say, skip A Realm Reborn. I mean, it does, like, for one, I don't find A Realm Reborn to be boring. I don't find it to be a slog. I enjoyed that story. Most of the moments that I remember being like, come on, were the quests directly preceding like a dungeon or a trial that I was excited to get back into. But, you know, the story itself didn't bother me. But I'm also a lore hound. I love, you know, like my whole thing yesterday about the dragons in Miracidia and the history of that. Like, I'm like super getting into the weeds of it, trying to figure out, okay, so what did he mean by this? And, You know, because like I want to know those details. I find it all really interesting. And that's why I think I like A Realm Reborn, because all those details that are building up the world are things I really enjoy. But again, beyond that, I think without that establishing information, you're going to lose a lot of context. And if there's, you know, any more proof to that is the fact that I did A Realm Reborn, like, I don't know, what was it, 7-8 years ago or whatever is when A Realm Reborn came out. Like, that's when I did it. And I'd forgotten so much of it that when I did do Shadowbringers, there was so much stuff I didn't catch. Where this time, because I had done it more recently, I mean, by and large, I think I caught almost everything, except for, I guess, maybe Alphino wanting to create the Grand Company of Eorzea or whatever. I don't ever remember him specifically saying that, but maybe he did. And it gives more weight to a lot of characters like Ehrenwald, who I was just kind of like, I recognize the dude. Like, I know he's a character that's been around. But the first time I did it, that's all. That's all he was to me, was just, like, I recognize that character model, basically. Where this time around, it's like seeing him, holy crap, he was in the Waking Sands from the beginning. And, you know, it would have been nice if he had popped up a bit more, because he only kind of, you know, just almost had a little more than a cameo. I think he may have popped in like once in Heavensward patches, and then he popped up a bit more in Stormblood, but it wasn't as much as I would have liked. I would have liked more of him, more character development for him, so the stuff that happens in Shadowbringers has a little bit more weight to it, where to me it feels kind of like a friend of a friend, you know, got injured in battle type of thing. And it's like, oh, okay, that sucks, but I don't necessarily feel anything from it. Although I like that they touch on, and I remember thinking this the first time through it, I really like that so often if a story even touches on the casualties of war, it's usually the dead. Where this, with Ehrenwald, actually, and hopefully we'll see more of it going forward. They kind of touched on it of, you know, him feeling like, I guess I'm done now. All I can do is wave and smile, and Fordola saying, like, there's more you can do than, you know, on the battlefield. But I mean, it's also just, there's so many more casualties of war that survive it, you know. And I like that they touched on that. And I mean, they touched on that a bit in Stormblood as well, but it was less, I think, less of a focus on the soldiers themselves and more a focus on like the victims of war, the civilian kind of victims of war. I mean, which is great too. Like, I've discussed some of the story elements of this game with people that don't play it, and they're like, holy crap, that is like really dark. And I'm like, yeah, that's, you know, this game doesn't sugarcoat stuff. It doesn't just tell cute little fun stories. It you know, it delves into kind of the human condition, as it were. And it's good. It makes for really great stories. Yeah, I would say I think this expansion, also what helped it was, I think, a bit more of a consolidated kind of adventuring group versus previous expansions, or at least it was a larger one, but it was a larger one that I think stuck around a bit more, where obviously Heavensward was a small one, and even then, you know, Estinian and Ysael kind of dipped in and out or whatever, and then Stormblood had us kind of jumping back and forth between people, where this, maybe I kind of feel like, and it may also have to do with the trusts, and having them there for that made this feel a little bit more like you're adventuring with your friends or whatever, which just added a little bit more investment in the characters, investment in the story, that, you know, you're there with these people. Again, not that it wasn't like that before, but I think some things like the trust system help add to that. It's interesting. I was thinking earlier today about story in a game, particularly in an MMO, because of, you know, various other MMOs that are may or may not be struggling right now, and some criticisms of the story in there and so forth. And it got me thinking about like having a dedicated narrative to an MMO versus just kind of throwing you into a world that doesn't necessarily bring you in on a narrative. Just the world itself is kind of the story. And things just happen in the story and you may or may not be a part of it, versus obviously like in Final Fantasy, you're a part. I mean, it like, it's about you. But when I got to thinking about it, even in a world where there are things happening and you just kind of happen to be a part of it or whatever, I mean, it's still your story. It's still a story about you and your character. But I think the lack of the focus on that, or at least the recognition of it, kind of hurts the storytelling. And for all of the criticisms and concerns, certainly going forward, of having a dedicated narrative that you have to go through to be able to really do anything in the game, I think it just still helps to create more of a living world. Because that's something I had thought of, I don't know, it was a few days ago or a week ago or something like that. I think it was on stream, was the idea that like, if you want a game that's a living world, that it feels like a world that people actually live in, that something is happening, you're only hurting yourself if you don't do the story. Because that's where not just a story happens, but it's where you actually learn about all the people and all the locations and all the little things going on there. Enough that in the same way that you can think about a friend and what they're up to, you know, it's like, you know your friend, and you can be sitting at home or something thinking, oh, I wonder what they're up to right now. It's in the same way. There's so many characters that are introduced in the MSQ, and I think what helps thinking that this world is living is, oh, like, I wonder what Runar is up to right now. I wonder what Tataru is up to right now. I wonder what Hancock is up to right now. You know, or little son. Is he still brooding over that? And then the fact that the story goes back to places you've been to before helps with that as well, because you do get some of those updates on characters. Yeah, it's so good. You know, thinking about it, I know some people get upset at others, I think, that advertise Final Fantasy XIV as a JRPG first and an MMO second, because they're like, no, it's an MMO, it's an MMO. But I think it's important to actually make that distinction, even if it's not 100% true, but to let people know, hey, there's a story to this game, and it's a good story. You know, like, don't play it like the other MMOs you've played. I don't, you know, because, I mean, if all you're into is raiding, I mean, more power to you, you know, like, skip all the cutscenes, buy a boost, and just get straight to the, you know, to raiding. But to me, that it feels like that makes the game so shallow. And then even then, it's like you're just fighting a bunch of stuff that you have no idea why you're fighting it, you know, what it's trying to do, what you're trying to do by defeating it or anything. And again, if all you're into is the numbers and, you know, pressing buttons as fast as you can, more power to you. But to me, I really enjoy, like, I think of the story as the backbone to the game, and everything else is just the organs or the appendages or whatever. That without that backbone, I mean, yeah, like, that's a liver. You know, you've got a liver on a table, but you don't know anything about the liver. You don't know, I mean, theoretically, yeah, you could probably look at a liver and know if the person was an alcoholic or something, but, you know, it's just a liver. Like, you don't know, like, whose liver it is or whatever, where when you have it all together in there, it makes a person. I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with that analogy, but it's just, I really like Final Fantasy XIV as a whole, and I think a big part of that is the story and how it connects and makes sense of everything. You know, makes everything a part of that story and a part of that world. And really, that's what I got into MMOs for to begin with, was to be in this virtual world. I remember being blown away the first time I ever even heard of an MMO. I was just like, wait, what? Like, there's, you know, it's a whole world and there's other people in it and there's all this kind of stuff going on and, you know, whatever. And I think that's maybe an issue with a lot, if not at least just some MMOs now, is that living world element has been scraped away, you know, for a focus on those smaller elements or whatever, the raiding, the PvP, you know, whatever else it is. And it's, what that does is it turns the MMO into like a lobby for other stuff. And that's probably the way a lot of these people end up seeing it. They log in, they stand wherever they logged in at, they, you know, bring up a menu and queue up for something. And then once they're done with it, they stand in the same spot and queue up for something else or log out. Where for me, I think just because the story has invested me so much. And not only does it invest me in the world, but it invests me in my character. Because while the story doesn't project too much personality onto your character, you still know your character. I mean, you put whatever personality you want on your character, and then your character still has relationships with all these other people. And yeah, so it all just, I mean, you get the story, you get that investment in your character, and then all these other side things you can do in the game, whether it be raiding, PvP, crafting, the gold saucer, mount collecting, you know, the true end game, you know, glamour, like all of that stuff around it just makes it more complete. I don't know. I don't even know necessarily what I'm saying. I really like this game. I think it's the closest I've ever been. And I've played a lot of MMOs, and it's the closest I've ever been to, you know, feeling like I'm in a virtual world. I mean, it was close with Final Fantasy XI and WoW back in the day. But I haven't played Final Fantasy XI in forever, and then, you know, WoW has become... I mean, even like Final Fantasy in a way, you know, with the duty finders and the party finders and stuff like that, like, you don't even necessarily need to be in the same place as the other people you're playing with until you're actually doing the content. And a lot of times you don't even need to talk to them. But I think, again, that's where that is where the story comes in to kind of bridge the gap and still make you feel like you're a part of something. And it's not just a lobby where you just queue up for whatever mini game you feel like playing. But yeah, anyway, I think just there wasn't really that much more that needed to be said for Shadowbringers. I think even, you know, after what I was saying about the story and the game and everything after Stormblood, you know, it's so good and it pulls everything together and just makes it all better. And I just really look forward to Endwalker. I mean, this is going to be the end of this story. We're going to get a conclusion to it, and I mean, it's going to be something new afterwards, and I have no idea where they're going to go with it, what they're going to do. You know, there's all kinds of talk. Are we going to continue to be with the Scions? Are the Scions going to be around? You know, are they going to go something completely new with completely new characters? Who knows? But I look forward to it. Well, I think we will skip the rest of this and see if there's anything left. I don't think so. I always remember just looking up the moon being the last thing, but let's find out. Oh, there is a little bit more. Oh, Amric's here. I will recommend that the Alliance keep a closer watch over Cartno. The Telophoroi may have failed in their attempt to destroy the Confluence this time, but there's not to stop them trying again. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to have a full defensive strategy there 24/7 now. Just knowing what can be done there. Throughout the battle, I could not shake the feeling that all present were performing for the amusement of Fandaniel. Nor did his blithe reaction to this latest defeat give me cause to think otherwise. I can only conclude that such failures are of little consequence to his broader scheme, whatever it may be. The Cartno Flats seem fated to play a prominent role in the history of the realm, do they not? I wonder, might the abundance of ether that floweth through the region have led the Alligans to entomb Omega there? That's very possible. Many though the enemy were, their numbers consisted largely of tempered beastmen with a few lunar primals to keep things interesting. The Garleans themselves ventured little and lost less. It has ever been the Empire's way to have others fight their battles, but even they would blush at the Telophoroid's use of tempered slaves. It was decent of Lord Emmerich to bear us home aboard his airship. The gods only know how we would have squeezed this many people onto the Bonanza. The temper that we were able to treat will be taken to the city-states for observation. As soon as the Alliance is satisfied that they're fully recovered, they will be free to return home. At the close of the battle, when the clouds parted and the moon shone down on us all, I cannot well express how I felt. Somehow, it seemed more a beginning than an ending. Yeah, it still feels like... I mean, unless there was something about the moon that is different than normal, it felt kind of like a weird moment of, okay, so why are we all looking at the moon? I mean, obviously we know because like we've all watched the trailer, but it was just kind of like one of those, I don't know, just spontaneous, like, you know, just everybody of the same mindset or wavelength type of thing. You should have seen my face when Lord Emmerich turned up on our doorstep. Did none of you think to send word he was bringing you home? I didn't know. I was watching the credits. Okay, so just... FME. Lately, the Rising Stones has been a hub of activity. Between combating lunar primals and forging good relations with our new allies, even our newer members have had barely a moment's peace. That would seem so if there's nobody in here. I wonder how many times there's been some random NPC they've thrown in the back corner there that I just didn't pick up on. I trust you all enjoyed a comfortable flight aboard the Pride of the Ishgardian fleet. Lest you worry, the Bonanza has been towed to a nearby location to be retrieved at your convenience. You have thought of everything, Lord Emmerich, and may I say how much I appreciated the hospitality you afforded us on the way home. Think nothing of it. Our destination lay in the same direction, and it afforded me the perfect opportunity to learn how my errant friend has been since last he took his leave. It would seem you have finally found a place to settle down, much to his chagrin. I merely grew weary of wandering the Far East. Returning to more serious matters, while the Telophoroi have been driven from Cartno, 'tis like that the bulk of their forces yet remain. On the evidence of the Grand Company of Eorzea's first joint military operation, however, I am confident that we have the potential to meet such threats head-on, even without the aid of you and yours. As such, while our forces keep the Telophoroi at bay, I would ask that you apply your talents to the task of neutralizing the towers. Okay, and then that's probably what's going to spur us going to some of the other regions, because I know we've seen a tower in Thavnair, I believe. So yeah, that's what's going to be our, you know, island hopping excursion, is going to be chasing down the towers. A sensible division of labor. While the towers remain, so too will the threat of the lunar primals. And given our expertise in the field of aetherology, we are better qualified to find the solution. That we are, especially should it happen to lie beyond the Alliance's domain, or dominion. There is a time and place for formal investigations, of course, but certain secrets are wont to hide where only enterprising individuals may venture. I could not agree more. There are none better suited to this task, nor any upon whom I would rather rely. On behalf of the Alliance, I thank you. We look forward to receiving any information you are able to uncover. And with that, I must take my leave. Should you have need of assistance, pray do not hesitate to ask. Fare you well, my friends. I confess, I had hoped to be able to study the towers more closely, vital as they plainly are to the Telophoroi's plans. If we can discern their ultimate function, we will be one step closer to understanding our enemy's grand scheme. Yeah, and that actually got me thinking, because earlier they were talking about how they get the ether required to summon at them, and I was thinking it draws from the land. For some reason, I was thinking there was something that indicated that, but unless that pops up, you know, in this, what I presume is last cutscene, I guess that's not the case. But for some reason, I still feel like that is. I don't know. I mean, well, we'll find out when we find out. Should we succeed in neutralizing them, of course, it is all but certain that the Telophoroi will mount an all-out invasion. And then it will begin. The one who awaits at the heart of the chaos will come for us. For you. Yet in the end, our true nemesis may be the calamity to end all calamities. The final days themselves. Yes, alright, Alphino. We need a plan, not portents. As Thancred so eloquently pointed out, we are in a position to seek information from all manner of places, not least Sharlayan. According to Kral, the Forum have been more secretive than ever of late. While this may be related to the appearance of the Telophoroi, that remains a matter of speculation. But one thing is clear, the Forum is determined to keep us from discovering the truth. Well, I don't know that that was clear. I thought at first that was speculation, but now it's clear. I mean, it's what I believe, either way. Master Fortunal's performance at the Lotus Stand was enough to convince me of that. The matter beareth further investigation, I do heartily concur. Nor can I think of a more promising place to look for the answers we seek on the matter of the towers. Sharlayan hath ever been the wellspring of aetherological knowledge. I care not where we go. Here or there, my lance will be ready. And what of you, Lavenza? Might you be persuaded to join us? Oh, of course. Plot a course for Sharlayan. If it means I can have words with Fortunal. An island of bookworms and bureaucrats? Have we no other choice? No, plot a course for Charlene. Hear, hear. It is time we laid bare the Telafroy's dark designs. It appears we are in agreement. We have but to wait for Kral to secure the necessary permissions. In the meantime, there is a matter I would investigate. Does it involve tall structures? By strange coincidence, it does. At present, I have only a creeping suspicion, but with your help, I will soon find out whether my fears are warranted. Ooh, what fears are these? There's got to be another cutscene after this. I have learned the emote, shush. Meanwhile, in the Garlean capital, of course. Oh, right. The gun scythe.
Those Eorzeans certainly are a stubborn bunch. Though I suppose you knew that already. My plan to redirect the ether from Cartano came to a rather less than satisfactory conclusion. It was, in many respects, an abject failure. Which does, of course, raise the question of where we are going to procure the requisite amount. The obvious solution would be to draw on resources a little closer to home, though that would require our dreamer to dream a trifle more deeply.
Yeah, who's the dreamer?
So be it. The dreamer will not complain.
Then let us begin the preparations at once. With the gateway of the gods complete, all that remains is to gather the necessary ether, and our prize shall be within reach. The time has come to fulfill your heart's desire, my desire! To relieve those wretched creatures of their meaningless existence!
While I await you, I shall drink a sea of souls and gorge myself upon the darkened moon. Then you shall come to me, all roiling rage and rancor. And the stars shall bear witness to our final contest.
What was that? Oh, right. In this cutscene, too.
As I thought, the ethereal currents have been disturbed here too.
It was the same in Thanalan. Make that every location we surveyed.
and the strength of each current has diminished dramatically, far more than could be attributed to a natural occurrence.
What tidings bringest thou from Dravania?
We took a number of readings, and noticed that the closer we were to the tower, the lower the etheric density became. In short...
There it is.
The towers are drawing upon the land's ether.
I knew it.
Which would explain how they were able to carry out the summonings.
Well, I remembered it.
Our allies must be informed of this. We should return to the Rising Stones and have Tataru relay our findings to them.
Hear me. Hear me. Hear me. Hear me. Darkness comes. And with it, the end. The fate of the star is in your hands.
No pressure.
Everything all right back there?
At solemn dawn, grim purpose shines and gazes cast toward moonlit sky. Thus does our final curtain rise, your steps to guide what end. That's all I got. And there it is, caught up on the story. This was one crazy good ride. Thank you for watching this video. So we did it. We finally finished off Shadowbringers. And obviously that means, that's the end of all current main scenario quests as the time of this recording. I think even as the time that this video will be posted, which is about a month out from when we're finishing this, but before Endwalker comes out. So we are all caught up on story, which is great. I had a lot of fun doing this. It was just nice to go back and get a refresher on all of this, and just to be able to do the entire story in a more condensed time frame. Obviously, like 8 years is a lot different than 2.5 months, which has helped me retain a lot of that and recognize characters later on that I didn't recognize the first time through, and all that stuff. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to Endwalker. Especially now that I'm all refreshed and ready to go. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, please, again, like, comment, subscribe. And moving forward, I'm still going to be doing Final Fantasy XIV content, but it's going to be more casual, I would say, more off the cuff, as it were, not as rigid as just focusing on MSQ. Try to, get some stuff done. Like, I haven't done any of the extreme trials in Shadowbringers, so I'd like to at least clear those, if not maybe go after mount runs. I might try to do some Palace of the Dead, Heaven on High achievements, stuff like that. So that's, I'll still be playing Final Fantasy XIV. Other than that, at least in the near future, which I should still be doing when this video comes out, is I'll be diving into World of Warcraft. Just, you know, I played it for years. I stopped playing shortly after Battle for Azeroth, and with, you know, all the news about it lately, I kind of want to jump in myself just to see how it is. You know, get firsthand account versus other people's impressions. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing in the near future, and probably sometime after Endwalker, I'll start getting into other games, non-MMOs, and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's kind of the schedule around when this video comes out. So if you're interested in joining me live, the link to my Twitch is in the description down below. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a good one.